This is Sports and Torts with David Spada and Elliott Harris on TalkZone.com.
On the phone, we have Richie Guerin, former player with the New York Knicks and Atlanta Hawks, or St. Louis Hawks at that time. Then they moved to Atlanta, and also with the coach with the Atlanta Hawks for around 8 seasons. How you doing, Mr. Guerin?
I'm doing fine. Nice to chat with you guys today.
I see you went to Iona for college. You never think of Iona as a basketball school. How did you end up there?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I had only played 1 year of high school basketball, and when I got out of high school, I actually enrolled in freshman week at Manhattan College because I thought I wanted to major in physical education. I had a scholarship to Iona, and after going to freshman week, I decided that was the wrong place for me, and I transferred back up to Iona, and was very happy with 4 years of playing there.
What was the program at Iona back in those days?
Well, they played a lot of the local teams. They played some national teams like Dayton and Baldwin Wallace and, of course, Siena today. And it was I was primarily a day hop school, so I went back and forth every day, to school.
And then when you went to the Knicks, that'd be like a big change for you, right?
Not really. I was well prepared. I had gone into the Marine Corps for 2 years between my college graduation and my first year with the Knicks. And we played about 55 games at Quantico. And we played at that particular time, every college player had to go in and serve at least 6 months or to 2 years of military service. So I actually played against a lot of great players like Cliff Hagan from Kentucky and the O'Brien twins and Dick Rote, who played professionally. And I played with a fellow from Holy Cross called Ronnie Perry, who was their co-captain when they won the NIT. So I improved my game and was exposed to playing against a lot better competition than I did in college.
Was there any anticipation that you would be drafted by the NBA?
I had been drafted by the NBA before I went into the Marine Corps. I was drafted second round by the New York Knicks.
When you went to the Knicks, you went there as a point guard. Who were you replacing as point guard?
You're using an expression that I didn't value at that particular time, and nobody else. There were no such things as point guards or off guards. You were a guard, period. You could play the point or you could play what they now call the off guard. You had to be diversified enough to be able to run a team, to be able to play good defense, to ball handle, to play defense. That was considered a guard, not a point guard or a shooting guard.
And you could handle both of those roles fairly well, it would seem.
That's the way the game was played back in those days. If you were a forward, you had a rebound, you had to do all the things that a small forward today called, or a big forward. A lot of times we had fellas on my team like Bill Bridges and Paul Silas, both big, powerful guys that played at the same time. Or I had Joe Caldwell and Lou Hudson play against certain teams at the same time as forwards. Even in that era of basketball, you had to be able to do the multiple things that some of the players don't have to do today.
When did the game become so specialized?
I think it started with be honest with you, I don't know the exact years, but I think it started a lot with college coaches recruiting. A lot of the college coaches today and a number of years ago have basketball camps where they bring young athletes into, and they basically stereotype young players as a point guard, shooting guard, and in my opinion, it stops the young people from diversifying their skills. A lot of players today, you say, he's a great ball handler, but he can't shoot. Or the other guy can shoot, but he can't handle the ball under pressure. Those, to me, are disadvantages that some of the young players have to deal with today.
Now, what was it like being traded from the Knicks to the St. Louis Hawks? I grew up in St. Louis, so I know that St. Louis is not New York City.
You know what? It was difficult, but I basically requested a trade. Unfortunately, my wife was pregnant that particular time with our youngest daughter. I got traded in October. She was born in December. I just was not ready at that stage of my career to become a sub off the bench for the Knicks had drafted Art Heyman #1 that year, a player out of Duke. And I had talked to Eddie Donovan, who was then the coach of the Knicks. And I said, Eddie, look, I'm not prepared to give up playing time or to monitor a young guard coming into the league. I still feel I have many good years of basketball left. So if, in fact, that's your intention, then I think you better look around to trade me. He told me that he didn't really have any ideas about trading me at that time, but if it came up, he would let me know. Well, we played 2 games into the season, and he called me into his hotel room after the game and said that he had made a trade with St. Louis. So it was a shocker at the time. It was tough for my wife. As I said, she had 3 other kids that she had to take care of and was pregnant with my 4th. So it wasn't the easiest situation, but it was a good franchise for me to go to.
You had some great teammates who were future Hall of Famers on those teams. You had Bob Pettit, Lou Hudson, you mentioned Lonnie Wilkins, Cliff Hagan, and you. I mean, 5 Hall of Famers. How did you guys all work together? Well,
we didn't have a problem. As I said to you earlier, fellas knew how to play basketball. I'm not saying guys don't know how to play basketball today. They're great athletes. They're skilled athletes. They're fantastic players. But they have different agendas. Like you've read about Lynn coming to the Knicks a few weeks ago and how it's helped their backcourt difficulties. Well, I mean, they got 2 or 3 kids playing backcourt who, in the coach's mind, doesn't know how to play guard. I mean, at this level, it's embarrassing and to make comments like that. The fellas you talked about, they were complete basketball players. There was no major adjustments. I had a major adjustment when I first went to the Hawks because Harry Gallatin, who was a coach at the time, and basically he had a lot of plays. Most of his plays were for the front court, for the Hagans, the Pettits, and Zelmo Beatty, and players like that. And it took a while for me to, if you want to use the term, become a little more selfish and include my own skills into the offense, because I said to Harry, I said, Harry, you traded for me. If you traded for me, you certainly wanted some offensive force out of my situation rather than doing the same things as the kids you dropped or put on the bench. So I was almost frustrated to the point where I almost went home. But Mr. Kerner, the owner, and Bob Pettit talked to me and said things will change, and eventually they changed, and I became more important to the team.
You mentioned Ben Kerner, the owner. How did you become player coach? Did Ben just want to save himself a salary, or was that part of some plan?
No, I'll tell you the story, and I'll tell you a cute story that's attached to it. I had played 1 year with them, and we went through the next year training camp and so on and so on. And then the season started, and I guess the team wasn't playing as good as Ben anticipated the team playing. And I had gotten hurt. I pulled a muscle in my calf, and I was out for a few weeks. And when I was out, Mr. Kerner summoned me to his office, and I had no idea what it was about. And he said, I'm going to make a coaching change, and I want you to take over the team. And I said, I'm a player. I'm not, there was no such thing as player coaches back then. I said, I'm a player. I still have, a number of good years left to play. Well, I talked to Bob Pettit, and I talked to some people, and they feel you can do the job. So I said to him, well, I'll try it. I was still on the inactive list, but I said, when I come back, I'll try it. And if I feel I can do it, I'll do it. If I don't feel I can do it, then won't do it. And you'll have to get somebody else. So I decided to give it a try. Then I said to him, I'm going to have to get an assistant to help me here. He said, there's no room in the budget for an assistant. You just have to find somebody to help you on the bench with various things that you have to keep. So I did it, and it was fine. It was an advantage playing guard, but it was a little disadvantage playing guard for the defensive part of it because everything basically happened behind you. So I had a couple of senior people on the bench, Mike Farmer, Gene Tomolin that gave him the responsibility to watch some of the things that were happening. And I did it for like 5 out of the 8 years that I coached.
When you were coaching, did you have trouble separating yourself from the players because you were a player for so many years? Did the players kind of think of you as a player and not as a coach, or think of you as a coach and not as a player?
No. They knew I was a player, and they knew I was a coach a lot, and they knew as I said to them, that there was a number of times that I called the practice when we just came back from a road trip because I wasn't happy the way things happened. And I punished myself as well as them, if you want to use the word punish. Whatever I did to them, I did the same thing for myself. So there was a mutual respect between wearing the two hats, and they understood that I did the best and fairest things I could possibly do as a coach. And but I never kept them in the dark. I explained why I did certain things or made certain moves, and most of the time they understood.
Now, during your playing days, did you have a favorite backcourt mate?
Well, obviously Lenny Wilkins. Lenny was a great player, and we worked very well together. And, then the various other players who came along. At times I had Lou Hudson or Joe Caldwell, depending on what matchups were, playing guard with me or playing guard with Lenny. So I would say that probably Lenny was the best type of guy that I had playing with me.
I'll tell you what, that 1970 Western Division Finals, I read about that fourth game. You're 37 years old, getting 31 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. Was that one of your best games as a pro, or was it the 50-point game?
Well, you know what? I was forced into that situation because we had two of the guards, like Donnie Ole, and who either broke his hand or had mono, and Walt Hazard, I think either or both of them were out. So I was forced to play myself that much. We had a rookie, Butch Beard, and another fellow that I'm not sure exactly who the other guard was at this time, probably Lou Hudson, Joe Caldwell. And I just happened to have a game that I played, but, at that stage, not having played that much or not having practiced that much, I basically I suited myself up as the 12th man, figuring at that particular time, in case we had an injury or in case something happened, I would probably be able to do a better job than somebody that sat on the end of the bench all year long. So it was one of those things that just happened. But, at that stage of my life, I was just shy of 37 years of age. And in those particular days, it wasn't like the young 37-year-olds that can play today. I mean, when the season was over, I had to go get a job and stuff to support my family. So it wasn't like you train all year long and your body is in that great a shape as you get older.
Because you were retired for 2 years when you suited up.
No. I basically retired after 11 years of playing. And we won the Western Division in St. Louis before we moved to Atlanta. After we moved to Atlanta, I realized and found out I would be best suited to reactivate myself and be like the 11th or 12th man in case we needed that, and not have somebody just sit on the bench and not get that much playing time.
I remember Zelmo Beatty when I was a kid, and I thought he could sack up with just about anybody in the NBA. Was that a warped view from a young kid's perspective, or was he that good?
Well, he certainly was at a disadvantage when you played against Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell and Walt Bellamy, the 7-footers at that time that played inside and were very strong. Zelmo was about 6'9" legit, and he didn't have an inside game. He basically was a 15-foot jump shooter. He used to play inside a lot and set a lot of picks or take advantage of mismatches, but he was not a low post center. He was more a high post center. And when we played teams like that, as I said, Chamberlain or Thurman from San Francisco or Bellamy or Bill Russell, it was to our advantage that he was that type of player so that he could take them out from, onto the basket.
Why did you decide not to coach after you got done with the Atlanta Hawks, after they moved from St. Louis to Atlanta?
I just had enough of it. In my opinion, the game was starting to change. We had we had drafted Pete Maravich, and Pete was one of the first high-priced players that came into the league. And I just noticed the difference of the way things were starting to go. I didn't care for the new ownership that was happening in in Atlanta. And, I had traveled enough and spent enough of time in the business. As I said, I've had four children that were were growing up and into school and into college. And Wall Street always enticed me, and I had some friends that worked in Wall Street, so I went up and visited and interviewed with some of the CEOs of the Wall Street firms, and it interests me very much. So I said, you know what, this is where I'm going to go.
Now, were you comfortable with having a background to go to Wall Street at that time? Were you prepared?
Oh yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, Wall Street. I was what they call a sales trader. I talked to institutional clients, not individuals. Like I'm talking about big banks or mutual funds or insurance companies. And what I did is to buy and sell stocks from them, representing my firm. And I had enough of confidence in myself. I was mature enough that I could talk to these people and explain the posture of my firm. And that was very exciting. I enjoyed it very, very much.
Was there more stress coaching or being manager director of Bear & Stearns?
You know what? Obviously, playing was the most exciting thing of my life in regard to a business. Coaching was the second. And when I was general manager for a few years, that was interesting. But again, as I said, things started to change. Everybody started to get agents. Everybody started to talk about the how much their people were and worth, and I had to tell them they're not worth, and it just didn't get interesting enough anymore for me. But the challenge of going to Wall Street without any financial background was another challenge that I looked forward to and accepted and did very well at it.
Now, for people who've never had a chance to see Bob Pettit play, fit in today's NBA game fairly easily, do you think?
There's no doubt in my mind. Bob Pettit had one of the hardest working people I've ever seen and smartest people I've ever seen play basketball. Bob didn't have the greatest natural talents. In other words, as a 6'9" forward, he couldn't jump more than maybe a couple of feet off the floor, but he was a very intelligent rebounder. He knew his teammates. He knew when they had the ball and they were about to shoot, he would try to make his move to the basket to get in good position to rebound. He'd box his man out very good. He was a great 15-foot jump shooter. He was what you call a workaholic and got every ounce of talent and blood out of his body.
And I remember a season where he broke his right wrist and ended up shooting left-handed for a while.
Yeah, and they won the championship that year against the Celtics.
You know what? I miss those days. I mean, I'm only 40, but hearing the stories, I think I would enjoy basketball more then than I do now.
Well, you know what? I enjoy the game, but I don't enjoy watching it with every team that's on. You know, there's certain games or teams I have DirecTV. I can pick up any game I want, but I only watch certain teams play. Teams that I enjoy watching the way they play. And I don't want to get into saying who and what because I don't want to create, enemies or something like that because the coaches have responsibilities to do what they do. And I certainly don't want to sit here in a chair in Florida and tell you what games or what teams I like better than others. But there's some teams that play the game the way the game should be played. And then there's other teams that play the game that I don't think they maximize the value out of their players. Or their players are not disciplined enough to play, in a system where you have to do that to win or compete.
I like watching European players play in the NBA more than the players that basically grew up here because it seems like they're more team-oriented in the journey.
Well, they are because they get more background. A lot of the kids today come out of the college after their first or second year. And as I said, a lot of the kids that come out of colleges are a me-first type of kids. Their primary concern is how many points I scored or how many rebounds I got, and not what we did. It's a little bit more of a selfish image because of the amount of money that's out there available to these young people, and a lot of the people, this is for the rest of their life, that can take care of their families and stuff like that. So I don't totally blame them because this is something they have a chance. You know, they don't have that many chances to make the rest of their life secure. But the players that come out of Europe, they play in a team-oriented system. There's not that big money type of thing years ago. It's becoming a little bit more rewarding because we have some of our American players that go over to the Orient or Europe or South America that play on professional teams. But certainly it doesn't compare to the NBA in regard to talent, but you'll see more and more Europeans making a team now because they can do everything. They can pass the ball, they can shoot the ball, they can play defense. They're well-rounded.
Thank you for your time. But I always ask a former stockbroker, when I talk to them, any stock tips?
You can never blame that one on me. You'll have to make that choice yourself.
What a great interview with Richie Guerin.
Excellent player, excellent coach, excellent interview.
He could do it all. He forgot he was excellent making money in Wall Street.
Yeah.
He occupied Wall Street for a while.
Well, he occupied a spot in an office somewhere on Wall Street, I'm sure. A very nice one, I would think.
I want to thank our guests, Richie Guerin, Stacy Boyer, and Lefty Drizel. Another great show. Our sound guy extraordinaire, Dave Olson. We're taking next week off, and in 2 weeks we're going to have the first black player in NBA history, Earl Lloyd, and he'll give you 40 minutes of pure pleasure, I'm sure.
Definitely.
Stay tuned, and thanks for listening.